amazing. So the other day I was talking about this topic, and I think that this is a lovely topic to discuss today. And it is, have you ever had an amazing favorite teacher? Someone in your life that really inspired you or aspired you to be a better human? And I want to dive into this topic today because, drum roll please. Well, because we're going to get into it in just a moment. Okay, hold on to your horses. You know what? I gotta pay the bills. Well, we need my little advertisement. Be right back. Welcome back. Oh my goodness. I am in self-reflection today. I am effectively setting goals. I feel like I should only communicate clearly. I always tend to be an active role model, and I like to take ownership in my adaptability and flexibility, but be prepared in my lifelong learning while promoting a love of learning. These are all qualities of good teachers. Actually, the 8 qualities of good teachers, and that was in an article sponsored by Indeed.com. Indeed.com. I'll put the link in my blog. But I wanted to talk about this because, oh my goodness, have you ever had an amazing teacher? I sure have. I've had amazing teachers in my life. Now, there was 2 teachers that crushed my soul, but when I think about it and I go back and I reflect deeply on that, all I can say is now I'm empowered to be better, right? And I'm not going to bore you with those sad stories. Maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see how I feel. But I need to actually highlight positive people. I have someone in my life that I refer to as my fairly goddaughter. And I say this because, oh my goodness, me and my husband absolutely adore her. She's an amazing, incredible human. If she's listening to this, she knows who she is, and she's a teacher. And talking to her recently, she will often tell people that I'm her mentor, but sometimes that role is reversed, and I'll tell you why. So as many of you know, I'm on a new extended journey. I'm always on different journeys. I get to the platform, I reach my goal, and then I think, how do I better who I am? What can I do to improve? I mean, how to improve upon greatness, but there's always something we can do. Anywho, so while talking to her, my son right now started school. He's starting kindergarten, and she's in that age group of a teacher. And I was like, oh my God, the children that must be in your class to have the gift of you as their teacher. Listen to that, because she is a person that provides a gift in being around her, part of her life. But could you imagine the influence on the students in her class? I must say, and not to give it all away, she knows who she is, and I won't say her name, but I will say she's our Susu. If you know who she is, applaud her when you see her. Now, with that said, in my new journey, I am doing my Doctor of Business Administration, and that is a DBA degree. So as I mentioned, I will be Dr. Fanny Chico quite soon, or Dr. Fannytasticlife, I should say. And my focus is on business administration, management, and education. That is my focus. So I've been learning about different techniques and different things, and of course, you know me, I love to read research. Part of my research journey will be researching qualitative types of data, but I also feel like I'll be sneaky and ask my advisor if I could also take quantitative, so I could leave with 2 fields, because they both intrigue me. I have always been very data analytical, and I like to understand whatever it is that I'm learning. With that said, why make any journey that I'm about to embark easy? Why make it easy? I like a challenge. But more than that, I like to have critical foundational talent that can drive to my degree and can drive in my lifelong goals. So part of my lifelong goals is to be a more profound speaker within business education. Hopefully one day even doing TED Talks, because I love TED Talks. But with that said, one of my short-term goals is, being an adjunct professor. However, I also started thinking about teaching. And with that said, I reached out to Florida Department of Education. I'm now seeking my statement of eligibility for business education. Why not? Why not? What would I be waiting for, right? Well, with my business education certificate, it would also embark on adult education and social science. And these are things that I have been doing, and I shouldn't say things, these are subjects that I have been currently developing for the past decade. And I was looking at a subject matter test regarding business education, adult education, and social science, grades 6 to 12 in college or undergrad. And I said, let me give myself a test. And sometimes we have this imposter syndrome that I've spoke about before, where we feel like, can we truly do it? This imposter syndrome we have inside makes us feel like maybe we're inadequate in the field. Would you believe in these tests, I got them all correct? This is my subject matter expert knowledge. And I don't know why I second guessed myself, but I did. But then I thought about some of the qualities of a good teacher, and I came across this article that was published August 4th, 2021 by Indeed editorial team, and it's approved by the Indeed career coach. And it's about effective teachers who are critical to the development of the academic success of students. And that's a quote, or a paraphrase of a quote. But I was looking at those characteristics, and these are things that I speak about all the time. And as I'm reading through this, document or article, I thought to myself for a second, wait a minute. I've had amazing teachers, and I want to just take it back. And I want to take it back through a little bit of a nostalgia journey. And if you don't mind, I don't mind if you just take the ride with me. And I want to bring it back to Miss Schofield. Miss Schofield was my kindergarten teacher in PS 61 in District 1 in New York City. Miss Schofield, I must say, bless her heart, she was so lovely, so amazing. To me, as a kindergartner, I always remembered her, and I remembered her level, and this may sound silly coming from an adult thinking about it as a child, but she had a way of professionalism that I just respected. And anytime I met a new teacher, I would always say, well, let me see, how did they gauge against Miss Schofield? Because first impressions are key. You're professional, you appear professional, you speak professional, you're professional, right? The moment you're disrespectful, then the child in your learning environment, there's a break there. And Miss Schofield was always together. She almost was like a Mr. Rogers. She always, every single day, was completely consistent down to her sweater. But her tone, the way she spoke with me and talked to me and dealt with me, lovely. Lovely that when I got to the first grade and I had Miss Boswick, some children did not have a good experience with Miss Boswick. But Miss Boswick was so amazing to me. And then over the years, I've had so many teachers that I met an amazing, incredible teacher, Mrs. Kaufman. Now, when I tell you, you ever heard of 6 Degrees of Separation or 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon? Mrs. Kaufman, I don't think anyone in her life ever had a negative opinion of her. She was amazing. The quality, the understanding, the love in her heart was amazing. And her counterpart, Miss Fay, was also amazing. Now, this is basically elementary school wrapped up. We also had, our gym teacher, Mr. Horowitz, who always made me play dodgeball, and he's another character. But speaking of Miss Kaufman, years later, fast forward years later, when I worked for the United Federation of Teachers, my colleagues all knew Miss Kaufman. Sadly, Miss Kaufman passed away last year, and it was heart-wrenching to think that this woman, who was, in my eyes, my teacher, but this incredible woman really gave me something in my heart that stood with me all these years. And then to find out that she was so her best friend was my boss years later out of coincidence. You know, we got to think about those relationships that transcend. You know, the world is small, so be careful of everyone that's around you and always be kind, because you don't know how they may impact your life later on, right? Well, with all that said, my favorite teachers, I must say my number one favorite person was the librarian, Miss Malawany. Even when I say her name, Miss Malawany, I was her librarian assistant in the 4th grade. And one day when I was working for the United Federation of Teachers, I had the opportunity to work in the retirement department on the 17th floor. And she had an appointment that day, and I guess it was for her retirement. She walked in, and I looked at her. Now, I'm Fanny Gerloven Chico in my professional life, but as a child, I was Fanny Harriet Gerloven. And so she walked in, and she looked at me, and I looked at her, and she said, "Fanny Harriet Gerloven?" And I was like, "Miss Malawany?" And I'm laughing right now just thinking of that moment. Could you imagine, after possibly 2 decades, she knew exactly who I was, and I knew exactly who she was, and we, I guess, had an impact on each other's life. And she said such sweet, harmonizing things of validation and love, and she was always a role model. I could tell you right now, and she may not have thought of it at the time, but some of the phrasing she used, and even in her own style, I do those things nowadays. She had a green sweater, so sometimes when I want to have a meeting, I wear a green sweater. There's certain things that we take from the people that we meet that impress on our lives that becomes our foundation and our standing point in certain skills, including the fact that don't even think not to ask me a question about the Dewey Decimal System. But even more than that, my aunt, she's a librarian. She has her MS in library studies, and if I got her degree wrong, I apologize to my beautiful aunt. But even her, when she would have read-alouds at her school, I would always want to go because she's an incredible teacher and educator herself, and so is her children. The majority of my family are teachers. So now I let my little son off to school, and I just hope and pray that his environment will love and cherish him as much as he loves and cherishes being in school and being a big boy. When we left our beautiful Roxbury last year and had to take on this challenge of coming to Florida, he cried for weeks about his teacher, Miss Becca, and also the other teachers in that room and his friends. But he cried for Miss Becca because he loved Miss Becca. These are the people that impact his life. And he even said, "Mommy, is Miss Becca going to be my teacher this year?" And I had to explain that it wasn't. We went to the open house yesterday and we met his new teacher. Lovely, lovely person. The energy and love in his room and eyes, we had masks on, but I could tell. I was like, this is a person of quality. You see their quality. You meet the person and you see he was prepared. This was part of his lifelong objective as a teacher. The room was, I could feel the promoting of the love of learning. These are the qualities that Indeed was speaking about. I can tell the atmosphere was exactly what my son needed. So today when I pick up my son, I hope that I feel that they're lingering, that my 2 other children, they've had different experiences and favorite teachers. We only want that, but then we also want to think about who are we sending into the world. I don't want anyone to ever say to me, "Oh my goodness, I had your child. Oh, let me tell you about your kid." That would be devastating. And on the contrary, when my son was speaking to his teacher last year, she saw my other son, his teacher, Miss Becca, and she was like, Is that Cessa Chico? Are you guys brothers?" And I laughed because we're the only Chico in the whole town. And I said, "Yes." She was like, "Oh my God, do you not know that your son read to the kindergarten students in my class? And I must say he was absolutely amazing." And I was like, I looked at my son like, "You didn't even tell me. I didn't even know about that." But wow, I didn't know about that. And not to mention, when mommy wasn't looking and when daddy's eyes weren't on them, they still were professional, poised, polite, confident, yet humble. This is how I want my children to have on society. When society sees them, I want them to respect them because of their characteristics when mommy and daddy aren't around. That is a true test. That's actually a testimonial. When your child is with you and they act a certain way, but do they act that way when you're not with them? Ouch. Sometimes we don't have those consistencies. But with my children, I don't know what the future will bring, but I can honestly say I always respect them and trust them. I trust them so much with so much information of my lives. And so far, although they're children, they always come prepared to the game. They do. And I give them a lot of respect. So if they hear this, they know they're loved. So within this article that I'm reading, there's so many things here, but this article is amazing because there's some points in here that really hit home. Let me give you another paraphrase here. It says, good teachers are lifelong learners dedicated to the academic development of students. Think about that for a moment. If you're a teacher in a subject matter like math, and you're talking about the Pythagorean theorem, right? Maybe triangles or something with geometry or something. And if I'm wrong about my theorem or whatever it may be, even though your content may not change, how do you progress? How do you edify your own experience? Sometimes teachers start with technology or they listen to what their children are up to. I saw someone recently, a math teacher, an effective teacher, who was beyond prepared and was a clear communicator because he used certain skills that his students were maybe dancing, singing, something within that nature to help them memorize formulas for their problems. And students then emphasized when they had to take major tests, they would think about his songs or his types of learning in their test taking, so they were able to memorize these equations. Could you imagine? Like, if you think about, I love Excel. I don't know if any of you love Excel. I'm a big Excel person, and on Excel, I actually do follow somebody on LinkedIn who her content is incredible. And I've spoken about her many times, Lila Garani. And if I said her name incorrectly, I apologize. She's the founder of Excel Plus on Microsoft. She's a Microsoft MVP. But when you speak about these types of things, sometimes you have a formula like equals sum, open parentheses, A2 plus, whatever it is. You need to know to type that formula out without hesitation when you're working in a job that deals with analytical data or whatever type of data. Maybe you're just doing a simple spreadsheet, but you still need a formula. Understanding a formula can be difficult because if you don't have your array or your value correct, or maybe your comma doesn't have the correct true or false value, it will not compute a correct result. The same idea that this teacher was able to express that. That is the thing that we need to kind of learn from. Understanding that even if you're an educator, can you redevelop your own models? Is your method the method that is needed in today's society that is effective to goal setting? Which goes into the article. This article is not an article that is, 100 pages long, and it actually has an amazing little video part of it, but it's so dynamic in its efficiency, which is concise and precise, right to the point. So please, I will put that in my blog, and that blog should be posted by the end of this week, but you'll enjoy that. Now, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to hit on some other pieces. I will be right back. Please don't go. See you in a little bit. Welcome back. Now, sometimes we come across people that are, I'm going to use this word, and I'm not using it lightly, that are phenomenal. That you meet them and you see a quality inside of them that they don't recognize. They don't even know they have this quality. And they may be low-key about it, or they haven't tapped into it. And sometimes you meet people and immediately you know that there's something that they're working on, but they can't identify it. And this may go to however you may think about things, but I'm speaking about this today because I have been doing coaching for a long time. I've been doing coaching for about 20 years. And in the last 5 years, it became professional in the sense that people would say, hey, Fanny, can we book a session to discuss some coaching that I need? And, in the beginning, I wasn't open to charging people or thinking about it as a service that I would provide. But then it became a service, or they would reach out a different way. One of my last clients that I recently worked with, even after my contract ended, they continuously reached out to me. And the funny thing was, the person that kept reaching out kept asking me all these different types of questions. And every single time they needed my help, I honestly just stood there and listened to them. And we would do like a Zoom or a conference call. And I would let them do everything. They would do everything. I was just on the phone or on the conference or the webinar. So one day, this person said to me, I noticed in the billing, there's something wrong with the billing. So I was like, oh, please explain what's going on with the billing. You haven't billed me in a month. And I said, honestly, our contract ended a month ago and I'm still helping you. So whenever it's something that is relevant to charge you for, okay, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the need to charge you. Oh, but I call you about this and I call you about that. And I'm like, yes. And you pretty much do it. You do the work. So some may say that's a poor business decision on my part, but I don't think so. This person has the skill set to complete the task. And what they're looking for, I guess, is moral support. I'm not a psychologist. But in our relationship and the dynamic of how I help this person, when it is something that I was doing in a function, in a capacity, particularly payroll or something in their benefits and compensation, they had a question about business readiness and something they were embarking with their accountant. Those type of things I categorize as services. But whenever we would work on something they're working on, honestly, they were doing the task. And I didn't feel that it was right. See, there lies a line of integrity that I have that there's no need to milk anyone. If the job is sufficient and it's working out, then I'm happy to help. I'm happy to be feasible in my position and also connect in a way that there's a trust, there's a longevity, and there's a connection that I have clients from 2 years ago to this day reach out to me. Oh, hey, I have a payroll question. I'm like, what's your question? Oh, I'm running this in the W-4 or the I-9s. And honestly, they take me through the whole thing and they do it themselves. Or I have, sometimes I do advocacy for my clients, and I have someone who always reaches out to me about immigration. And they're like, well, I have a question about this form. And we get through the whole form. These are not things that I'm going to consider. You know what? They are billable hours. Absolutely, they are. But in the idea that we are maintaining a partnership and they reach out to me when they need me, and if they feel that, you know what, I need you for this actual service, then we will discuss payment or whatever it is. But these are all parts of lifelong learning. You learn these things, that when to say this is efficient for me. Everybody's time is valuable. And with that said, your time is valuable, and so is theirs. You know what's more valuable than your time? Your relationships. Because time is limited, so how you impact other people's lives really says more about yourself. And when you eventually, pass away, you have to think about, what do you have to think about? Nothing, right? You're gone. But what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? Oh, every single penny she charged me. Or I never learned anything from her. There's a saying that my good friend and ally always says. You could give a man a fish, or you could teach a man a fish, right? You give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach a man a fish, he eats for a lifetime, right? And I might have said that in my own way, but the idea is there. I'd rather be someone that provides a service for you, helps you understand what you need to do, and then gives you the skills and the resource to get those things done. Now, I have clients that are like, I don't want to know how to do it. Can you just do it real quick? Absolutely. So there's both sides. Now, how does this relate to teaching? A teacher provides you the skills so that you can be efficient to the things that you are learning, right? They demonstrate this to you. By learning these skills, you walk away with value because now you have these skills. They walk away with value because they demonstrated and taught you these skills. Now you don't see this person and you move on to your next class. You created a relationship there that's a professional one, that in the future you may see them and can still tap into those resources. I had a college professor, and I'm going to say her name, Professor Moran. Professor Moran saw more in me than I ever saw in myself. And she invited me to be a part of City Tech Writer, where I got paid a grant to write a part of my project. And my project was to write about law and technology. So I wrote about law and technology and the fallacy of censorship. That was my paper, and I assisted her, and I got a grant, and it was part of this whole entire project at New York City College of Technology. At the time, I didn't know I believed in myself, and it was about 2010, right before this happened, and she noticed that I was doing something. I was an entrepreneur of sorts. People would come up to me and say, "Hey, can you write my resume for me? I'll pay you." I'm like, "Sure." So somebody would come to me, ask me to write their resume. I would ask them a series of questions. I would write out their resume, write out their cover letter, and I would charge them $25 a resume or cover letter. And I would print it out and bring it to them. If they wanted it emailed, it was $30, because then they had the copy and they could do whatever they want with it. So I would do this all the time. And it was pretty much, "Hey, can you help me?" Then it would go into, "Hey, I have this big project coming up. Do you know about this research?" And it would change. I wouldn't do the research for them. I would walk them through the process of how to do the research for this particular class or subject. And then I noticed I had a following. I would say, "Okay, meet me in Starbucks." I would meet with people, go over, "Oh, okay, what's your class? Family law. All right, what are you writing about? Okay, so you want to make sure that you hit these type of points." And I would coach them to understand their methodology of what they were really researching. "Oh, I have a lot to read. How am I going to get through this?" So then I would also express to them, what you can do is read it out loud, record yourself, then hear it. Hear what you're saying. Because at the time, we didn't have it on YouTube. We didn't have these things available to us. So these things, so she kind of pointed out, like, you're doing a lot of entrepreneur things. Why don't you own this? And that's kind of when I started doing business consultations. I also at the same time, I was doing paralegal work, where I worked for law firms just on Saturdays and Sundays, 3 or 4 hours a day, doing whatever they needed me to do, filing, whatever. But I learned things there. I combined both of those skill sets, and I created my Fannytasticlife business, where if someone needs help with something, assisting with something, it wasn't necessarily a W-2 job. It was more of a contract relationship, where whatever they needed, I would get paid for. It's like a 1099 relationship, and that was it. That started in September in 2010. And to this day, I still do it. And so I feel like, is this something that's feasible for me? It is. Because I like to help people, motivate people. Sometimes it was charitable. "Fanny, we need help fundraising. Can you help?" "Okay, let me see what I can do." We'll reach out, work through the community. And this became part of my passion. So charging people for every little tiny thing wasn't necessary. Was it a fundamental need for cost of living? Well, you can say it was, but it wasn't a need that I felt I needed to breach relationships because of it. I decided at that point that in the beginning, LinkedIn was just new to the system, new to social media, and I started using it as my jumping off foundation piece, where I would reach out to people, make a relationship, or help people wherever I could, and I found it to be part of my passion. Part of my passion is motivating people, coaching people, and not worrying necessarily about payment. And I don't know if that makes sense to anyone. When you do something that you love to do it. So, you have a credential, a professional credential that you should be compensated for. And yes, there's moments that I'm like, okay, well, this is my service fee. That happens. But I wouldn't jeopardize certain relationships or certain networking of reaching out. I get a lot of, hey, listen, I see that you're posting on LinkedIn, and are you looking for an opportunity? How are you advertising? You know what I say? Are you interested on LinkedIn? I always respond with, I am very interested in reaching out and making that connection. And I'll reach back to you when I need your assistance. Because I don't want them to lose the connection. And what if down the road I do need them? Why jeopardize it and say, not interested? You see there, that doesn't work for me. I think that the teachers in my life created the skill of being open, having empathy, promoting this love of learning. One of the major things is feedback and identifying with feedback. And I noticed in my doctoral journey, one of the biggest things that we discuss is your self-reflection, your journey, identifying feedback, taking feedback, and I guess digesting it. Sometimes someone provides you feedback and immediately you do not know what to take. But think about it. When you were a youngster and you were writing your name for the first time and it was sloppy. Oh, you need to be neater. You need to write those words, those letters neater. Sometimes you would be like, well, what's it to you, right? But then think about it as an adult. I think about penmanship. I think of my husband's penmanship. He writes, it's almost in calligraphy. I'm like, your penmanship is beautiful. I don't understand. And that's because when he was growing up, it was a non-negotiable item. He had to have clear, legible handwriting. And it's interesting because my oldest son, my husband, really pushed that. And my younger son, he is still developing his skills with that. And my youngest son, he is conscious about preparing his letters a certain way. And that's all driven from my husband explaining to them about your presentation of who you are. You ever write something down quickly, you don't think about it. Those can come back to haunt you in business and in teaching. I always remember all my teachers who always had beautiful penmanship. And I would laugh because I once had a math teacher in high school who said, I teach math, who cares about my penmanship? And I had to laugh about that because my other math teachers were very diligent with their handwriting, but he didn't care about it. And he was like, he always made it a point. But I must beg to differ. And I think that it is all in the presentation. When you take the time to prepare yourself and present yourself a specific way, also, it helps with your relationship you keep. Because if you don't care about your presentation, why should I care about it? And so, and he was always told he should have a neater handwriting. And sometimes we couldn't even understand what it was on the board. I've never had that experience with any other math teacher. It was only this particular math teacher in high school. But that always kind of was like strange to me. Because, you think about when you got a teacher's note and how beautiful the letter was or something of that nature. But the importance, what I'm really trying to drive home and speak about is the understanding of having this identity and being able to prepare something that is adequate for learning, but also for your own objection and things that you're working on, your goals, right? As a teacher, you have to continuously consider different types of continuous education. And, that might be difficult. That's kind of difficult for certain people I know that they don't want to continue. They're like, okay, I did this and I'm done. But, to stay fresh and understand concepts, it's really important that when you invest in this type of position, you understand that that's a future investment within yourself. Well, on this journey, I've mentioned so many different topics that kind of intertwine with each other, and my grandfather was a teacher, and he kind of, was the one that laid the foundation for kind of his whole entire family. And I remember when I got my first job with the Teachers Union, he was so proud of that because to him, I would be able to help in a way that I wasn't a teacher, but I was able to facilitate help for my family when they needed it. Now that I'm embarking in this next journey and, looking forward to the adjunct work or the faculty and professor work and in the business education teaching work for grades 6 to 12 and undergraduate level, I really feel like I am manifesting a positive energy and reflecting on my experiences with my previous teachers. And, this is something that is truly valuable to me in my life. And there's so many things that we do in our lives for specific reasons. But I find having a value is something that is the most important to me always. Whether it's my clients who need training and development or training in certain specific areas of their business that I'm always willing to help them with. And just this morning I had a phone call and they were like, oh, are you still doing this? And I said, okay, let's figure out what's a good time for you and we can speak, trying to make sure my availability is there. When you build that type of trust in your student, in your colleague, in your leader, it's so valuable, and it's something valuable that you take with you. So think about the value that you've received from other people. Think about the value you offer. And remember your favorite teachers. And now today is back to school for all my children. So I really am excited to hear about their journeys when they come home. I can't wait to know what happened with them and anything. My one son has a crazy schedule running around the whole campus. And their campus is beautiful, I must say. I was shocked. We went there the other day and their school is absolutely lovely. And it's something to think about, that when they get older, they'll have these memories, right? Well, thank you so much for joining me on today's journey by Love My Teacher and the teachers that love me. Thank you again for listening to Fannytastic Life. Stay tuned for our next. Bye now.